Peace, people. We're back here with another video. It's Friday the 29th, October 2021. And thank you for joining me. Thank you for your attention and your time because of the two things that you can't get back. So this is me working on getting these videos out more, so thanks to all the comments, subscribers and all that. Much appreciated, and always give your feedback in these videos. It's always good to have different perspectives and dialogues when it comes to various subjects. So, this video right here, I dedicate to all my Scorpios. Shout out Scorpio season, this is definitely a time to be aware and have your due diligence. Shout out to my man D, probably one of my, if not my favorite Scorpio. You know who you are, I won't say your full name because like most Scorpios, you value privacy, but shout out to you. Shout out to all my Scorpios in Scorpio season. This one is for you, and this one is for everyone that's curious more about Scorpio nature, Halloween, and also, which might not seem to fit the video, but it will when it's finished, Joe Biden's dark winter. So all of these things are related. So being that Halloween is coming up in 2 days, I kind of wanted to lay this video down as a template to Scorpio energy, and also pretty much show why Halloween is during this time, and also show that the time that we're in right now, especially with Joe Biden leading the country, why Scorpio energy is so crucial, because it is one of the 4 signs that runs and dominates this pandemic. So the signs that dominate this pandemic are Capricorn, Sagittarius, Scorpio, and Gemini. So those 4 signs pretty much dominate this pandemic. So, and the ones that have the hardest time are Leo and Cancer. So we went over Leo in the last video. So this one, being that it is Scorpio season, I'm kind of going to deep dive into what Scorpio energy is, and pretty much give an overall overview of how this relates to Halloween, how this relates to Joe Biden and his dark winter, and shows that where we're going is going to be ushered in by Scorpio energy, which is so important because they sit at the bridge between what we seen as uplifting and positive and light, and taking us into a place that might not be as uplifting and might be a lot more dark. So Scorpio is that sign that's going to bring us into darkness. So anytime you're in a dark space in your life, or anytime things aren't as jipper or as positive or as uplifting as it might seem, it could be that you're not utilizing Scorpio energy properly, because that's what Scorpio energy reflects. Scorpio energy reflects things that are not bright, and it's meant to take you through the things that are dark so you can go through that dark tunnel. And once you go through that dark tunnel, once you make it through all of the pain through that dark tunnel, you actually can go and rise above it and see new heights and new lights. And that's what Scorpio energy represents. And that's the time that we're moving into now, being that we just moved into Scorpio sun. This is exactly what's happening this month is going to pretty much reflect what we're going to be going through over the next 4 or 5 months, and maybe for the rest of our life, So this time is very important. So it's very good to be very keen as to what goes on in these next 30 days. And one reason for that is because Scorpio has many nicknames, right? It has a lot of nicknames, and it has the most symbols. Why? Because it's said that it's the most powerful sign in the zodiac. All signs have their power, but Scorpio, because of what it represents, is said to be the most powerful because it represents life and death, right? It represents the power of creation and regeneration, and it dominates the sex organs, which we're going to dive into. But some of the nicknames of Scorpio are very telling into the energy of Scorpio, right? So, a few of the names that are Scorpio is Satan, right? Satan of the Bible. It actually shares that nickname, Satan and the devil. It shares that with Capricorn, and you'll see how Capricorn and Scorpio are related as we go through this video. Another nickname of Scorpio is Beelzebub. For those of you that's familiar with the Bible, Beelzebub. It's also known as the thief or the robber, right? It's known as the Lord of the Flies. It's known as the king of the bottomless pit, right? So Scorpio is also known as the angel of death. So as we get into this video, we're going to see why all of these nicknames apply. Because, like I said, Scorpio right now is all of these dark themes, right? Anytime you see these religions, right, the Bible, Christianity, things of that nature, and you read these stories, which are really allegories, because these characters in that book, the religious characters, did not exist, right? And these holidays that we celebrate, all of these religious holidays represent the planets and man's relation to the planets. So anybody that doesn't believe in astrology but celebrates these religious holidays, they're either ignorant or hypocritical, because there's no religious holiday that we celebrate, especially here in America, that is not related to the planets, the stars, and human beings. And when you read that book, when you read the Bible, all of the stories and the places also reflect the human body and the processes that the human body goes through in relation to the planets. So anybody telling you that astrology is not it, and that it's witchcraft, and that it's bogus, it's out of ignorance, fear, and indoctrination. They either have not studied, or they're so bombarded with indoctrination and fear that they can't rise above it, that it paralyzes their ability to see the truth. But as you read these books, you'll see that these books and these stories and these people are talking about the human body, and they're talking about man and woman in relation with their human body, in relation to their environment, in relation to the planet and the other planets and the stars. And that brings us to Halloween, because Halloween happens during the time of Scorpio, right? It's a time when we're just coming off the harvest. It's a time when summer has ended and we bring into the fall. And now Scorpio is the time that's going to lead us into the winter. That is why, because the winter, right? Anytime you see darkness, or anytime you see what they consider as hell in these books, they're talking about the seasons, right? The four apostles are really the seasons, right? Summer, spring, fall, winter. So anytime you see, like when they're talking about Christmas and they're talking about the sun, or they're talking about Jesus, Jesus represents the S-U-N of God, not the S-O-N of God. And the reason why I'm going all over this is to give context to what Scorpio represents in its full nature, right? So when they say that the Son of God has been born again, or has been resurrected after 3 days and 3 nights, that's talking about a process of the sun from the 21st of December to the 24th of December, when it said that the sun sits still and it basically doesn't move, right? That's pretty much what it represents. It represents the time when the sun is at its lowest point. It's at its lowest point, right? And after the 24th, it is said it appears, because the sun is still, right, but it appears to be making its way back up past the equator, right? And it said that's the day when it shines the brightest, but it's the darkest. So at the 25th is when it appears that the sun is making its way back up to the equator. And when it makes its way back up to the equator, that's when springtime comes, and that's what they call Passover, right? So this period of December 21st to December 24th, which is Capricorn, it represents a time of darkness, right? Because that's when you have less sunlight, right? When you go outside, it gets darker quicker, okay? And that's the point when it's at its most, its apex. It's during this Capricorn Christmas time. Now, how does all that relate to Scorpio? Scorpio is the sign that starts to bring us into winter. It is the sign that starts to bring us into the cold. It represents the next few months of it being a cold place, darker place, less sunlight, more darkness. The weather shifts. Scorpio is the sign that brings us into that, right? Because you have summer ending when it comes to Virgo. When summer ends, we go into Libra. That's why Libra sits in between Virgo, and it sits in between Scorpio, because it's a bridge. It's a balance between the summer and the winter time. And Scorpio is the one that leads us into winter. And winter is a time that's seen as darkness, because when it comes to farming, when it comes to human beings, when it comes to our temperament, it's leading us from something that's cheerful and uplifting, like the Leo months and things of that nature, to something that's more dark, to where you got to dress warmer, you got to prepare, you got to be more diligent. Scorpio represents that sign that takes us there. So it's the beginning of hell as they see it, because the darker months are seen as the time of hell. It's all allegory. So that's why Scorpio is known as the angel of death, because that's said during winter is when the sun dies. That's what that means, that the sun dies because there's not as much sunlight as you have during the summertime. So that dark winter, that darkness begins with Scorpio. It takes us on that journey. And as it transitions into that journey, we go lower and lower and lower into darkness. And that's what Scorpio represents. So all of these nicknames and all of the attributes that you attribute to Scorpio is just to give some context that a lot of that, most of it is seasonal. Okay? So I just wanted to lay that down. And that brings us to Halloween. Halloween, All Hallows Eve, right? All Saints Day and all that. It's a Celtic and Druid practice, right? Out in Ireland. And it's called the Samhain or the Samhain. And the Samhain was a celebration that the Celts and Druids did to reflect the time of the year that they believe was most likely that spirits had a higher chance of appearing on Earth in droves. And it was during this time of Scorpio, because it was saying that at this time of the year, the way that the planet is oriented and the shifts, it's situated in a way in which it allows all of these spirits from all of these other worlds to come into Earth during this time of Scorpio. That's why Scorpio is also associated with the gates of hell, because during this time of the fall time is when spirits are most likely to make their presence known. So the Celtics were celebrating this because they observed this. And so they would dress up as costumes to honor the spirits that were in their favor, and the spirits that weren't in their favor, they would dress up in these costumes to kind of throw them off and confuse them so they wouldn't harm them. All of this went on during this time because this was the time, right around after the harvest, this was the time in which it was said that spirits are most likely to make themselves present. So these aren't celebrations that we're just doing out of nowhere. Just like Christmas, just like Halloween, just like Easter, Passover, all of these things have to do with astrology, period. I don't care who denies it, that's what it is. That's why you never have Easter on the same date every year. It switches, right? First full moon, first Sunday, because the moon and that Sunday, they have to conjunct in order for that to reflect the vernal equinox, the time of spring where it says that the sun passes over the equator and it starts to reach its highest point. So we went through December 21st, December 24th, where it appears that the sun doesn't move. And then on the 25th, it appears in the sky that the sun is about to make its way up past the equator. And this is also culminated during the spring equinox, or what they call Aries or Passover or Easter. And this is showing that it's about to go to its highest point and it passes over the equator, right? Until it gets to the highest point of sunlight, which is during the summer, right? Which is that Gemini Cancer time. So that springtime reflects a time in which it passes over the equator and it's going to the highest point. All of these religious ceremonies is documenting and celebrating, whether we know it or not, what happens throughout the year that we call the four seasons. Because the four gospels in the Bible, Mark, Luke, John, Matthew, those are the four seasons. There's no people that existed by these. These represents the seasons. That whole Bible book is about that, period. So when you're dealing with Scorpio, all it's saying is that it's leading the charge to bring us into a time in which it's going to get darker and darker. That's what Scorpio represents, and that's what Halloween represents. Because Halloween, the Samhain celebration in the Celtic Druid time, it represented the first half, the half of the year that represents the summer months. And then the other half of the year represents the winter months, right? A time when it goes from hotter to colder. Now, that's why in between you have Scorpio, and then before Scorpio you have Libra, and then before Libra you have Virgo. Virgo represents the Virgin, right? Virgo represents the time that summer is pretty much at its strongest point, right? They say that August could be the hottest month of the year. It represents prime time to start harvesting your crops, right? That's the time when summer starts to culminate because it's about to end, right? So it's reflected by the sign of Virgo. After Virgo ends, summer ends, and then we get into Libra, right? Libra is not a human sign. So when you get into Libra, Libra is a bridge. It's a transitional period, right? If you notice during that time, it could either be hot or it could either be cold. It could be either way. That's what Libra represents. It represents that balance. Why? Because it's the bridge between the summer and the winter. It's a transitional sign. It's a sign that takes the aspects of summertime and transmutes it and then brings it into Scorpio, which takes the position of no longer making it any kind of summer at all and brings it fully into darkness. That's why, if you notice during this time, we've had colder temperatures than we've had all summer, because that's what Scorpio represents. So that's why anytime you see Scorpio, you're going to see that Libra energy as well, because it's a transitional type of thing. Also, that's why when you deal with Scorpios, you're always going to be encountered with the darker elements of yourself or the darker elements of nature, because Scorpio energy represents a reflection of making you and them reflect the areas of their lives that are less pretty, more ugly. That's why Scorpios, if you notice, they'll like to kind of sting themselves, because one of their symbols is the scorpion. They'll like to test themselves to breed the weakness. The candle just popped, right? Confirmation. They like to test themselves to breed the weakness out of themselves, because Scorpios have an understanding of strength and weakness more than any other sign. So Scorpio has a tendency to put themselves through things in order to weed that weakness out of them, because they understand that that weakness that they identified is not in their best interest and they need to be stronger. So when you're talking to a Scorpio, be mindful of this, because that's just their nature. They identify the weakness in you, and depending on who they're talking to, they will find a way to breed that weakness out of you, especially if they see that you have the potential to be stronger. That's the Scorpio element that we're dealing with. So when we're talking about Scorpio time right now, the Scorpio time and energy that we're dealing with during this month of October, that's what we're transitioning into. So you might come across people that that they're gonna reflect back things that are less cheerful, right? They're gonna reflect back some ugliness. They're gonna reflect back some darkness. So if you're thrown off by that, just understand that that's where we're going. And when you look at Halloween, that's what it represents, and that's why they have the mask and the costume. Anytime you see masks, that's Scorpio. This whole pandemic, what was the major themes of this pandemic? It was masks, right? Because masks represent transformation. In ceremonies, when people put on masks, they use the mask in order to communicate and bring themselves and those participating in the ceremony to a whole other dimension, right? A dimension that is not what they regularly used to interfacing with. So anytime you see cultures and customs and they put on masks in that ceremony and in that celebration, what they're doing is they're bridging worlds that they're not currently living in, right? They're transforming from the realm that they're currently in, and when they do the ceremonies and the dances and the music and the chants and they wear their mask, they're taking themselves and those participating out of the realm that they're in currently, and they're bringing everyone into another realm, while at the same time bringing another realm here. It's a constant exchange and merging of worlds. That's Scorpio. Scorpio represents that transformation. That's what we're moving into right now, right? We're moving into a world where a new normal, right? Scorpio is the sign that's going to bring us into a new normal. So everything that's going to happen within the next 30 days, you're going to see is going to be a transformative process, and it's gonna transform through pain. It's going to transform through darkness, because that's what masks represent. That's what Scorpios represent. That's what Halloween represents. And if you notice, out of all of the religious holidays, Halloween is the only religious holiday, where you can actually be someone else and everybody's okay with it. Everybody's actually looking forward to being someone else. They're actually celebrating being someone else. Other holidays, like Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of these other things, and even Easter, you have to be yourself and you have to be around others that are themselves, and sometimes you don't want to do that. But with Halloween, we actually celebrate being someone else, because that being someone else allows us to explore other aspects of our personality that we might not have the courage, or we might not have went the process of becoming, because we didn't want to, I guess, buck up against society, or we didn't really have the stamina or the bravery to be that other person on a regular basis. But with Halloween, it's no judgment. You could be whatever you want, right? And transform yourself for that time period. That's what Scorpio represents. So anytime in your life that you're having an identity crisis, that's really you not using Scorpio energy properly. So anytime you're going through a dark period, anytime you're going through a period where you don't know who you are, think Scorpio. Think, what mask have I been wearing? What mask do I want to wear? And what mask do I need to wear in order to take me to a whole new person? So therefore, when I take the mask off, I'm someone new that I'm comfortable with, that's better and stronger than I was before. That's the essence of Scorpio. That's the essence of Halloween, right? Because Scorpio means to slaughter. So basically, it slaughters the parts of you that aren't best for your higher purpose, and it gets rid of it. It destroys it, because Scorpio is a sign of build and destroy, right? Because Scorpio also represents the sex glands. Now, with this build and destroy, anytime you see in the Bible, anytime you see in these metaphysical religious texts, and they're talking about earth, anytime you read that Bible and it mentions earth, right, or it mentions the lands, anytime you see that, it's talking about the human body, period. So when you hear something like the lost souls of the earth is the body. So when you read that book, or when you get religious or anything like that, anytime they're describing lands or earth, it's about the human body, period. So example, when it says lost souls of the earth, what is that? So Scorpio represents the gonads, right? The sex glands. Similar to when you masturbate. Now I know I'm going left, but I'm also going right, right? When you masturbate, see, when you have sex, you either do it the Taurus or the Scorpio way, because Taurus is the polar opposite sign of Scorpio. So a lot of times when you talk about Scorpios, the first thing people might think of is sex. Oh, Scorpios, all they think about is sex, right? But that's a generalization, because Scorpios deal with the quality of sex. Taurus deals with the quantity of sex. So Scorpio deals with regeneration. Taurus deals with generation, because they're polar opposites, right? So anytime you having, because Scorpio is also the sign that they don't like superficiality, right? They have to transform and transmute basic things into its higher purpose, right? And that's what we get into Sag. So anytime you having sex without a higher purpose and meaning, then you're doing the Taurus way of sex, which is quantity, which is for the pleasure, right? Which is just for the breeding. That's the Taurus, because Taurus deals with materials. Taurus deals with that pleasure. When you having sex and you have a purpose for it, whether it's to be liberated, whether it's to have a child, for whatever the purpose is that you have, if it's a direct orchestrated purpose, that's the scorpionic sex. So it's two different things, and a lot of people don't address that, because Scorpio deals with making something at a higher level, going through the basic low rungs of that thing and making it to its highest form. That's what Scorpio represents. So when you have sex, or when you masturbate, or things of that nature, especially when you have sex and it's not for a higher purpose, or when you masturbate, basically what you're doing is you are wasting the procreative element, and you're wasting the power that's in the sexual energy. So when you, like an essence of masturbation, when you do that, those are the lost souls, because those sperm cells that you are getting rid of over the earth, right? They're not going anywhere. They're dying off. They're dying off on the land, which is your body. Those are the lost souls over the earth. That shit is just masturbation, right? Because those souls have energy. They have a spirit to it. So if those spirits and those energies are not going to a place where it can actually create a human being, then it's lost. That's the real lost souls of the earth. That's the misuse of Scorpio. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with taking things to its highest level, and that's what Scorpio represents. So when we're dealing with something like Halloween, right, that's all Halloween is symbolizing for, is taking the other parts of you that you don't do on a regular basis, and then being free enough to do it. You can do that in your regular life by understanding Scorpio. Here's why I wanted to add the Joe Biden and the Dark Winter piece to it, right? just to give more context to the power of Scorpio. Now, Joe Biden last year, he had a speech in which he said that we're going to go into a very dark winter. Now, that's no accident, right? Because we all know that these people in these governments, they speak in code. The people that run this, they speak in codes and all that. Codes and numbers, codes by the stars and planets, and codes through speech. So when Joe Biden says it's going to be a very dark winter, when did he say this? He said this after he stole the election, which was during the time of Scorpio, around November 9th, 2020. He said we're going to be in a very dark winter. Now, it's no coincidence that Joe Biden is president, because Joe Biden is the perfect person to lead us into where we're going, the new normal. The new normal represents a whole new transformation, or what they call transhumanism, which is where we're moving. What better sign to take us into a whole new normal through all the pain and the darkness than Scorpio? The only other sign to do it was Gemini. And that's why it was pressing that we had passed the torch from a Gemini president to a Scorpio president, because both of those signs represent low, right? Gemini is the lowest sign in the zodiac. Scorpio is the darkest sign in the zodiac. So both those signs represent the underworld. Both those signs represent the lowest forms of human nature. Gemini also represents the highest. They see the lowest and they see the highest, right? Scorpio represents the underworld and hell, and Scorpio also represents transforming out of the hell and out of the underworld, and it also is symbolized by the dove or the white eagle, which could take us to its highest heights. So both of those signs have the ability to walk hell and the darkest aspects of human nature, and also dwell in the highest aspects of human nature. The difference is that Gemini takes it to you real quick. You might dwell in hell for a few minutes and then go back to heaven and then go back and forth. That's what Donald Trump represented. You could watch him and be completely angry and upset, and the next day he'll say something funny, lighthearted, everybody's having a good time, just like that. Scorpio, it doesn't deal with heaven and hell like that, right? If it takes you through the underworld, you're going to stay there for a while until all of the things that you need to get rid of are gone. And if they're not gone, you're going to stay in that hell until you're able to harness the power to transform out of it and then go to your highest level. An example of that is Star Wars, when Luke sought out Yoda, and he went through all of his fears, he went through all of that, and he did not leave, and he was not successful until he went through that. That's Scorpio. If it was a Gemini, they would have been back and forth. Well, I'll be back next week and did it. They would have commercial braked it. With the Scorpio, they had to go through all of the hell first before they can go any further. And that's where we're at. And that's why Joe Biden, being a Scorpio, mind you, is the perfect president to take that torch from a Gemini and take us into a dark winter. That's why when he said we're going into a dark winter, it's very telling that that dark winter speech was given by a Scorpio, because that is the best energy to take us to the type of pain points that we're going to go through with all of these forced mandates, with all of these jabs. That's why you're seeing all of these protests. You're seeing all of this pushback. You're seeing all of these things, and it's taken us to the hell that we've never been through before on this planet, in this country. And the best energy to take us there is Scorpio. And that's why Joe Biden's speech was very telling. Not to mention, if you look up, and I'm going to read it, it's called Operation Dark Winter, right? So it makes you think, wow. He said a speech about Dark Winter, and Dark Winter is actually a government operation. Now let's see what Operation Dark Winter is, because all of these things is not by accident. So a Scorpio, the sign that represents darkness, the sign that brings us into the darkness of winter, right, gave a speech about bringing us into the darkest part of society. Joe Biden. That's no accident. So what is Operation Dark Winter? Here we go. Operation Dark Winter was the code name for a senior-level bioterrorist attack simulation conducted on June 22nd to 23rd, 2001. It was designed to carry out a mock version of a covert, widespread smallpox attack on the United States. Objective: Dark Winter was focused on evaluating the inadequacies of a national emergency response during the use of a biological weapon against the American populace. The exercise was intended to establish preventative measures and response strategies by increasing governmental and public awareness of the magnitude and potential of such a threat posed by biological weapons. So this is what Joe Biden, through the use of the phrase dark winter, was telling us without telling us. And only a Scorpio could do something like that to where we don't know. So these next few months is going to be a very trying time. It's going to make everybody face something that they don't want to face. It's going to make you face your fears. It's going to make you face all the dark parts of your subconscious and your unconscious. It's going to be the pain points, because that's what Scorpio represents. So if you don't have an understanding that this is a time in which you're going to be forced to get rid of the things that don't serve you. You're going to be forced to make sure that all of the things in your life that's superficial, that you find out if you can make it on a deeper level. And if you can't make it into a deeper level, you have to let it burn out in hell while you're going through hell. That's what Scorpio represents. Back to what I was saying about the masturbation and the sperm cells and things of that nature, and why that represents Scorpio. See, the energy that we have during sex, right, it really comes from the brain or the head, right? All of those chemicals and things like that, all of the substances, it's manufactured starting from the brain, which this is the highest point, right? This is the point at which that energy is at its most creative. If you notice that the lower half of your body, right, that's the pleasure point. That's when the sex and the creative faculties come from. And if you're not procreating, then that is lost energy. However, you have the ability to transform and transmute that energy, because that's the power of Scorpio, by taking the energy that's in the sperm and then through Kundalini exercise and things like that, you can channel that energy back up to the base of your spine and channel it up to your spine. And that power that comes from the sperm inside the sex organ actually becomes something different, to where it enhances your brain capacity and it makes you much more, your faculties in your brain are expanded. Now that's done, right, through the back of your spinal cord and the different vertebrae of your spine, which is ruled by Capricorn. That's why Scorpio and Capricorn are closely related, because you have the ability to take the power of Scorpio through a process, channel it up through the spine into your brain, which is Aries, right? And then turn that sex energy, even if you're not procreating, into something of a higher form. That's why when you see Jesus, he died where? At Golgotha. What's Golgotha? Golgotha is the place of the skull. So all of that is astrological. All of that is dealing with the body. All of that whole process of the crucifixion is really representing taking that Scorpio energy, channeling up through Capricorn, bringing it to Aries, and Aries, where the lamp of God is, you're born again, right? After it's dead, you're taking that energy into something higher. All of that is the power of Scorpio. It's taking something at a low level, going through a process of pain, and then making that pain into something magical and at its highest form that you've never seen before. So that's why when we wear these masks, these are rituals. This is something that the powers that be knows, that wearing the mask, even if you got the jab, is a process and a habit that you have to develop, because it's conditioning you into a whole new way of normal. A normal that's slowing you down, a normal that's going to make you more susceptible to a digitized world. All of this is Scorpio energy. So I just wanted to lay this video down as a blueprint to show that where we're going is being led by Scorpio. So any darkness, any pain point that you see in society with yourself, that's Scorpio energy that you need to pay attention to. So in order to manage, in order to rise above this, in order to get through this darkness, this dark winter that we're going through, which is led by Scorpio, you have to take a deep assessment in all of the things in your life that are superficial, right? The things that you're not able to transform. You have to be aware of all the masks that you wear, and you have to start being okay with what masks that you want to wear on a regular basis, and make that a part of your regular identity, so therefore you could take the mask off and be this new person that you want to be. So I just wanted to lay that down in the context of Halloween. and to show that even Halloween is a celebration of astrology. And Halloween is a Scorpio, it's a scorpionic holiday because it represents the bridge between the underworld and overworld, as they say, and allowing you to tap into many different worlds that you are not able to tap into on a regular basis. And you do that by becoming something else. You do that by going through the pain and the darkness that's within yourself, because the real underworld is inside of you. That's the ancient underworld. Once you're able to go into that underworld, that darkest, that stuff that scares you, that stuff that makes you angry, that stuff that you run away from, once you're able to walk through that in your heart, in your mind, in your body, in your soul, and once you're able to come out, whatever you come out of that with, whatever's left, that's what you have to work with to be a new person, so you can go from the underworld into hell, into heaven in the pearly gates. So with that, thank you for your attention. I appreciate it. I hope you got something from this video, and love y'all, and walk through this underworld and the gates of hell using the power of Scorpio, and I'll see y'all at Sagittarius. Peace.